Yeah, I feel like being a Scream fan at this point is kind of like a humiliation ritual.
Where is my daughter? No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Torn Apart, and today we're talking about something and not talking about something at the same time. It's gonna be a bit of a weird video once again because I watched Scream VII even though I wanted to boycott it with every single cell of my entire body for so many different reasons, and I actually talked about why in a couple of videos ago. But as a film critic, I had to give you my impressions, mostly because I don't want you to go and see it. It's really bad. It's disgusting bad. It's bad for everyone. It's bad as a standalone slasher. It's bad for the fandom itself. It's kind of like insulting as well. So today I was like, I want to do something different. I don't want to just do a review of Scream VII. I wanted to look at a video that I made actually a couple of years ago where I was coming up with a lot of fun, weird, nerdy predictions for what Scream VII should be about and who should be in it and what should be all the different plot twists as well. And I remembered that I was really satisfied with myself back then with my own writing. So I wanted to look back at that video together and see how many things I actually predicted well, so we can tick off some things from my bingo card, and which ones we almost wish that it happened like I said a couple of years ago. You ready? Let's start. I actually started the video with a really fun bit that was incredibly creative, like I completely forgot about it, so I'll let you enjoy it just for a while. Hello?
So I heard you didn't like my movie.
Yeah, I mean, you're clearly doing the same thing as the new Halloween. Like, you're banking on nostalgia and compensating with gore and like very complicated action stunts, while also gaslighting the fans into thinking that this is an actual good meta Scream movie while it's actually really not.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, this new trilogy is literally just about making money. But you're smart enough not to insult your fans, and at the end of the way, you get away with it.
And how much money do you think I could get if I killed you right now?
Not that much. I think nobody cares. I have like 400 subscribers.
I guess that means no one will come to save you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember. I was basically talking about the idea of doing predictions, especially when it comes to the horror genre, was actually something that was well made in the past by Haunted Hippie, who is another YouTuber who actually started approximately the same time as me, maybe a little bit earlier actually, and she's actually doing really well for herself. I'm really happy for her. This is one of those franchises where I have a lot of things to say, and it's actually incredibly fun to speculate about what might happen, and it's not necessarily plot twist as much as it's scratching the kind of weird itch that you have at the back of your mind where you're like, oh, I wonder if they'll do this or they'll do that. I feel like the horror genre is one of those genres where there is a lot of theories going on, and we love to talk about these kind of things. It's kind of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We are exactly the same. We just obsess over completely different things. What things are canon, for example, which movie we all agree that it should be deleted from existence, which characters are actually dead since their death were not showcased on screen. A lot of different stuff that is actually really fun. Here is the bingo card, by the way, and I'll be adding like new little bingo images so that you can keep track of what I'm talking about. We'll start with the location. The location has always been incredibly important when it comes to the Scream franchise. Every single movie takes place in a different part of the US, and there are some movies, of course, which take place in Woodsboro, but they always try to spice things up and to have you explore different urban environments. So I'm like, this new trilogy is all about breaking expectations, so if you want to follow in that direction, definitely we don't have to go back to Woodsboro for the third movie in this franchise, and definitely we cannot go to Hollywood like they did in the third movie. So my guess for the next movie is gonna be something completely different that we've never seen before. Scream VII is gonna take place in Miami.
Oh shit, here we go again.
That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. And actually, it is one of my biggest critiques of this new Scream movie, where we go back into this middle of nowhere kind of like Americana town. It looks like Woodsboro, but it's not. It's a knockoff version of what Woodsboro is and represents across the United States, basically. It's where Sidney Prescott has changed her name and had a new identity, new family going on for her. It has no personality. Actually, there is a moment in the film where there is an entire curfew and the entire town is completely like abandoned. Like there are these people running around being like, please save me, can I get some help? And literally no one reacts to that, and it didn't feel realistic as much as it felt like a movie set. That's why I really didn't like the location in Scream 7, and I feel like it was a huge waste of potential. If we went to Miami, it would be so much more fun, to be honest. Like a change of pace. Even if we went like to California but we stayed like on the coast, can you imagine just the idea of having like a ghost face killer like doing things like with the beach or beach parties, like just spice things up. I really don't get it why they decided to do such a Scream 7 that was supposed to bring us back to our roots. This is not the moment to go back to our roots. Like this is Scream 7. Like, to be honest, so many movies have taken place in Woodsboro. We don't need to go back, and we don't even need the first scene to do that for us. But my whole idea of this new movie is that it's gonna be taking place during a summer vacation, and the four main characters are gonna go there to relax and try to get away from everything. And actually it would be incredibly interesting if it happened the summer right after what happened in New York, meaning that they would not expect anything to happen to them, because very often these kind of like Scream serial murders tend to happen on special occasions. So anniversary dates of people's deaths, anniversary dates of people surviving a specific event. So it would be incredibly revolutionary if this was almost a direct sequel to what happened to New York. So the main characters will still be traumatized, but at the same time they wouldn't be expecting anything to happen, especially when they are on vacation. Plus, can you imagine like a cold opening scene taking place, for example, on a beach, someone answering the phone, being like at night by themselves on the beach, and Ghostface contacting them and killing them there, and of course there is no one around that can actually save you. Oh wow, the AI generated images were so bad. This was back in the days, like when it was literally the beginning of Midjourney and stuff like that.
It would be incredibly gruesome, and also it's something that we haven't seen in a while. So the Ghostface killer actually taking its time to kill the victim, but also to stage the body to say something about its reasonings and its modus operandi and why it's doing what it's doing, basically. And I think there is a lot of potential when it comes to going to the south, going to a very sunny area as well, mostly because there is that like horror cliche thing of we don't really expect horrible things to happen when it's sunny outside, when it's nice weather. And if a movie like this was taking place in a place like Miami, then you would subvert expectations without a doubt. You could have a lot of interesting like locations, you could have hotels and playing around with different like hotel rooms, hotel cards and stuff like that. You could have things going on with boats, for example, as well. You could even have a chase sequence taking place in a mall.
Oh wow, this is terrifying. These are so fucking stupid. What is that? Well, another thing that I might add when it comes to location and why I think it's important, besides all of those AI generated images which look exactly like your movie that we got at the end of the day. Actually, it's really funny because the movie is about AI, and literally the first thing that we talk about in this video as well is while using AI. I really like the idea of locations mattering and the idea of a location being used a couple of months just after, because there is one thing I hate about Scream 7 is the fact that it feels like it's almost deleting the previous movies. Like, actually Neve Campbell gives a really good performance, and Sidney Prescott is actually quite interesting this time around, while in the previous movies it really feels like she was there for like a cameo plus, as in like it was not just a cameo that lasted a couple of minutes, it was a cameo that lasted longer than that, but she didn't really feel like an actual character that has done things, that has grown. We have a different arc going on for her. This movie actually gave us that, so it it felt really weird for us to get a Scream 7 like this with her. It would have made sense if this was Scream 8, actually, when you think about it. Scream 7 would have been the end of the arc of these new people, and Scream 8 go back to the roots. That would have made a lot of sense now that I think about it. But actually, I cannot tick this one off because I completely got the location wrong. Of course, this movie has been rewritten so many different times, so it was almost impossible like to get it right.
There is one thing that I really didn't like about Scream 6 is the fact that almost everyone survived in the main character's realm, and same thing goes with the legacy characters. If you think about Gale, if you think about Kirby, like the thing that I hated the most was people like getting stabbed constantly, going to the hospital and then running around and the last minute being like, oh, here I am, which is what Mindy did exactly in the last act. It was so incredibly weird, and Chad as well surviving like all of those stab wounds. I don't know, it just felt like nothing was supposed to happen to a main character.
And they did it again! They actually did it again. These two characters, like, it feels like it's not even funny at this point. It feels just really stupid, like, as in they haven't learned anything. Like, they get stabbed once again, and then we see them in the third act being like, oh, we actually survived, by the way. And this would have been an interesting way of using them if they actually like made sure that they survived, but not because they were clever, because they learned something from their mistakes previously and not just by pure chance. And this is actually something that happens, now that I think about it, at the end of Scream 6 as well, where you see those last few frames of the two sisters like walking away in the sunset and stuff like that. And Jenna Ortega was actually like stabbed in the stomach, and she's just walking it out. She's just walking normally into the sunset as if nothing happened. That's something that really bothered me in the last few Scream movies. It just really felt like, yes, they made them more violent, they gave us more gore, they gave us more blood and more brutal deaths, but at the same time, they took away the realism of these people surviving over and over again and just getting away with it kind of too easily, you know? So, I mean, this thing here, I cannot tick it off once again from my bingo card because no one of importance died and there were no consequences for any of the main characters. And it actually was a bit of an insult to some of the main characters because we get some AI generated. I mean, within the film, they're AI generated. In real life, they've actually been shot footage by the main actors as we know them. We get to have a look at Dewey once again, sort of like guilt tripping Sydney at some point, and other previous like Ghostface killers. It was so pathetic. Like, to be honest, if there was a way to even make us care less about the legacy character, this was a perfect way of doing it. They didn't kill anyone off. Fuck this. I was actually thinking it would have been incredibly interesting if in Scream 7 the daughter of Sidney Prescott died like in the middle of it, and it became like a ruthless kind of revenge thriller to chase this Ghostface and like get her revenge. I feel like that would have been a way more interesting thing instead of like turning her daughter into yet another survivor. Like, we've seen this before, right? I think the Halloween franchise did it as well, where basically we have these 3 generations of women like learning how to become survivors and sacrificing one or the other. It's been done already, so for me it was not interesting at all. I'm sorry.
This is exactly what gave me the idea to make this video, the realization that Scream 6 is actually the middle of a trilogy. You know what happens in the middle of a trilogy? Very often they don't really take a lot of risks because you don't want to hurt the main characters too much because you know they're coming back for the end of the trilogy, but also you don't want to make it too gory, you don't want to make it too over the top because otherwise then you have to up the stakes even more in the third one. So the second movie in a trilogy ends up being quite stale very often because of that reason.
I'm saying a lot of incredibly clever stuff. And actually, I think another example, this is why Hunger Games, the second one, works so well and why people loved it so much. It's because it didn't behave like the second movie in a trilogy. It actually upped the stakes to a point where you're sitting there being like, oh really? Like, this is where you're going? It's really exciting.
If it was for me, personally, if I had to choose, I would definitely kill Sam because I don't think that she's that interesting as a final girl. She's not really well written as a character, and at the end of the day, I don't really like what they did.
She's not here.
Billy Loomis kind of legacy character.
Sorry, Patrick,
Plus,
from the past.
Tara is 100% a better final girl, so it would be interesting to kill her off as well. It would be some kind of character development that you would not see coming, because if you think that Tara is at the same level as Sidney Prescott, then you know that she's 100% safe. She cannot die within these movies, so they would be subverting expectations without a doubt. But if they don't do that, then it would be really interesting to kill Gale Weathers, and it would even be better if Gale Weathers died in the cold opening scene at the very very beginning. It would be incredible.
Oh yeah,
and actually
100%.
have an entire, like, almost plot synopsis for what I imagine a perfect Scream 7 to look like, and we'll go through step by step so you can actually imagine it with me. But for the time being, imagine either Sam
I can't
or
wait
Gail
to hear about
Weathers
that.
are gonna die in the next movie, and if the Gail Weathers character dies, she dies in the beginning, and it is mostly related to the fact that we have another Ghostface killer who is trying to get Sidney Prescott's attention, because Sidney Prescott went into hiding in the last film, also because of contractual reasons she couldn't be there, of course, but within the story of the universe she went into hiding, so it would make sense for the Ghostface killer to try and get her back within the main storyline, because maybe he's not able to find her, so the only way to lure her in back again is to kill another legacy character. Plus, Gail has kind of retrograded as a character, so it would be quite interesting to kill her right now because there is not anywhere else to go.
Okay, like I'm right that the Ghostface killers were trying to lure Sidney Prescott back into the franchise. It was the entire concept of Scream 7. So I'm gonna tick this one on, as in like I got it right, but not the motivation. The motivation is not because someone that she cares about actually dies, but it's because they start the killings once again. But I do 100% agree with Past Patrick. We should have killed Gail Weathers a long time ago. They don't know what to do with her. I actually rewatched Scream 6 a couple of days before watching Scream 7, and I was sitting there being like, they literally like walked back on their character development, and we are back in like Gail Weathers from Scream 2. It's completely useless. They don't know what to do with her character, even though it was interesting to give her like nerve damage from what happened to her in Scream 6 within Scream 7. It's something they did with Dewey as well. That's why Dewey wasn't able to walk well for a really long time. It's because he got nerve damage from the multiple stabbings he survived in the previous movies. I don't remember exactly when that happens. Maybe in Scream 2, maybe that's 100% possible. So it was nothing like revolutionary for me.
The next space on the bingo card is gonna be taken by legacy characters. So of course I talked about Gail Weathers coming back in this movie, but I want Sidney Prescott to come back in this movie, and specifically around the third act. So not from the beginning. I don't want the legacy characters to be there to help with the investigation. Besides Kirby, Kirby is gonna be there since the beginning. She's gonna be the only one that stays there from point A to point Z. Sidney Prescott, I want her to stay into hiding until the very last second, where she makes basically an appearance as a plot twist.
I actually don't agree with that. I actually don't think that was a good idea, just because they actually did that in Scream 5 and maybe even 6. No, in Scream 6 they didn't, 100% did. But in Scream 5 they did that, like when she comes back in the middle part of the movie, just basically to help them out with what's going on. So no, I think that wouldn't have been a good idea. I actually would like Sidney Prescott to come back and be the main characters alongside the original Carpenter sisters basically.
And I feel like that could be really interesting to do, mostly because the Ghostface killers, very often we feel like they know everything about everyone. It's almost impossible to surprise them. So it would be really cool for Sidney to actually have planned something in advance, knowing that these Ghostface killers were gonna come back and do something and prepare something, and she would surprise them and actually be there in the final act. I feel like there would be something very interesting to do with her. It would finally show that she's prepared to end this finally, and that she's not just being dragged in by a new Ghostface killer every single movie, and she feels like she has to be there to go through all the investigation and stuff like that. We already done that with her so many different times, so we need to spice things up. I kind of want Sidney Prescott to be almost like a Terminator within this Scream 7.
Literally,
I want her
what I
to
said
be
before.
there just to kill people.
You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original.
I see my point. I argued it quite well in this video. I agree that having her being ruled back in by another Ghostface killer in the new investigation is kind of boring when you think about it. We've done it over and over again, and this is also why I think Scream 7 doesn't really work that much, because it really feels like it's all of the other movies mushed together. It's just a reheated version of every single Scream movie we've already seen, and this idea idea makes it better. So maybe, yeah, why not? Like, I would like them to surprise the Ghostface killers. Like, imagine we arrive in the third act and Sydney has like put on the Ghostface like mask and everything, and the other Ghostface killer thinks that it is his friend, like his accomplice of the crime, and then he ends up actually stabbing and like backstabbing, for example, the Ghostface killer, and he's like, what the fuck is this just happened? And then she takes off her mask and he's like, boom, motherfucker, I actually already killed your friend and this is over. You know what I mean? Maybe like we don't even like have the time to get the final monologue from the Ghostface killer because he stops him beforehand. So many incredible ideas. Like, actually I was talking to this friend of mine about Scream 7, and she had so many interesting theories about how to do it better, and fans like know it better at this point. Like, Scream has become so meta, and like horror fans have become so clever, and we have so much like knowledge and culture around all of these slasher things that it's kind of insane that screenwriters don't. Like, maybe they just focus so much on other things. Like, Kevin Williamson directed this movie, and I'm pretty sure he worked on the screenplay as well, and I'm shocked that he wasn't able to make something interesting out of this script, because he used to be a really good writer, and maybe it was Wes Craven that like inspired him to do that, and by himself he wasn't able to. It's 100% possible.
A big important thing about the Scream franchise is the meta criticism. It's the fact that this entire
Scream 7's meta criticism was disgusting, almost non-existent when you think about it. Even there is a point where Mindy is about to give it to us, and then her brother is like, no, don't do that, like, stop, this is not cool, this is not fun anymore, let's not do it. So we don't even know what this is. Like, is this a franchise? Who cares at this point, right?
Series is all about criticizing the horror franchises, the horror cliches, the horror tropes, and it's something that I completely hated about Scream 6. It almost didn't have anything interesting to add to the conversation, and I feel like this is something that people will realize when they rewatch the movie or when they watch it within all the other movies within the franchise. But I noticed it quite immediately, and that's why I had such a strong reaction to it, and I really didn't like it, because for me that's the thing that I like the most about Scream. It's not just a slasher, it's also a meta postmodern slasher. So there is a lot of different readings that you can have with it, and you can have a lot of fun dissecting all the different tropes with the movie itself. So for Scream 7, what is the meta commentary about? It's about nothing. There is no meta commentary in Scream 7, and let me tell you why. I don't want any rules as well. I don't want yet another scene with Mindy explaining like the new rule.
I got it right. Another thing to take. Like, I love this. I'm loving this for myself.
Respect your own rules very often. No one is safe, but then the plot goes in a complete different direction. So of course it's stupid to do it, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I want Mindy to even be like fuck the rules this time around. This is not about the rules anymore. This is about real life, and I don't give a shit about movies anymore. It would be interesting to have that kind of spin. I want the meta commentary to come within the movie just because of different screenwriting choices that they're gonna make. I don't want the movie to be like a deconstruction of something specifically, but I want several like postmodern hints within the movie itself, so that we know that it's still part of the franchise, but basically there is no overall comment on the horror industry, because honestly, if you want to make this movie next year or the year after, there is no way you can do something clever. So at the end of the day, do something smaller and it will definitely be more interesting. I will give you details in the next few points, by the way. I'm not just pitching something and not giving you the details. They will come later on, you'll see.
I feel like this is 100% why the last few Scream movies, besides because of the performances, they're not gonna stand the test of time as much as the entire Scream franchise. Just they rushed way too much into them, to the point that what are we talking about anymore? What is the meta criticism of this new trilogy? It's almost non-existent. At least in Scream 5 we had the requel sort of thing. We had the opening scene where basically like they were talking to Jenna Ortega about like the new like horror movies made by like Jordan Peele, and like Hereditary, like the Ari Aster movies, like that kind of stuff, the elevated horror. That's the word I was looking for. But what are we doing right now? We're not doing anything. It has become like kind of like Halloween, kind of like Friday the 13th. It's become a parody of itself at this point.
Another thing that we have to do, and that I put on my bingo card, is chill the nostalgia. Scream 6 basically was going in insane with the amount of nostalgia, with all the different masks from the previous serial killers being left on the crime scenes.
They didn't do it. They didn't chill the nostalgia at all. Like, no.
See all the different memorabilia from the Stab movies, from the actual real-life things going on within the Scream franchise. We've used it all up. We can't do it anymore in Scream 7. So Scream 7 has to be something 100% original that still draws back on the history of Scream, but it cannot use the nostalgia anymore because we've already done it. And I'm saying this mostly because you knew since the very beginning at least one of the suspects, it was the detective.
They got this wrong completely. Like the way that they used Stu and the other Ghostface killers and the weird like filters and AI stuff, like how they basically brought Stu back to life digitally because he was not actually alive. Like that really pissed me off, and it's 100% let's go back to the original Final Girl, the original killers, and it just didn't work out because the actual killers were incredibly boring people. It's actually quite funny when you think about it, because the movie that they're trying to make was so boring, and the movie that they were making in their head with Stu like coming back and basically convincing all of these people to work for him and sending all of these Ghostface killers to kill our main characters, that was an interesting thing, kind of like a Ghostface army kind of thing, and I think I actually mentioned it in this video, so like stay tuned for that.
Because of course, who would be able to steal so much evidence from different police stations across states? A police officer. It's the only person who would be able to do that, or maybe Kirby, but at the end of the day it was almost impossible for them to take out like the Kirby wild card to tell people that she's alive and she's coming back for this movie, only for her to be turned into the villain. It made no sense at all, and there was no way that was gonna happen. And that is one of the problems of focusing so much on the nostalgia. Even though it looks cool, even though it's like good for the fans at the end of the day, it kind of messes up with the plot of the movie itself, and you don't take it seriously anymore, or you see everything coming from a mile away.
Did that surprise you?
Why?
Because you talk too much. Now shut the fuck up and watch the movie.
The next thing on my bingo card, it might seem like something quite useless, but it will come back like literally right after. I want the Stab franchise to make a comeback.
I didn't. I'm afraid that the Stab franchise didn't.
That there had been another Stab movie that was called just Stab, and it was basically like a legacy sequel as well, and it was hated by the fans and stuff like that. And if you remember that shot of Ghostface with the flamethrower that was featured in the trailers, for example, that one was actually from Stab. That was from a Stab movie. So it was not just a weird marketing thing that they did to attract people's attention, it was there on purpose.
The Stab franchise doesn't exist anymore because the Scream franchise has become the Stab franchise. So they were literally maybe not clever enough, or maybe they did it on purpose not to mention it as much as in the previous movies, because otherwise the similarities would have been too apparent and people would have been like, oh, this movie is really badly written.
And I'm saying that the Stab franchise should return mostly because there is no way that if there was a serial killer going around New York stabbing people around in the metro and across different buildings and stuff like that, there is no way that it wouldn't attract anyone's attention, especially the people who are behind the Stab franchise. They'll be like, this is the moment to make a film and to bank on the
100%.
national trauma that we've all been part of. There is 100% gonna be a new Stab movie, and that's why I put it on my bingo card. But the most important reason why there needs to be a new Stab movie, it's because I want it to be the cold opening scene for Scream 7. Are you ready to go down a rabbit hole with me? Because this is insane if they actually manage to do it.
I actually don't remember this. Let's find it out.
Video, but I think it will look really cool. The cold opening scene in Scream 7 is gonna be directly from the set of Stab 9. And this is not gonna be the same thing as Scream 3, because that's what they were trying to do with that movie, blurring the lines in between cinema and reality. I want to do something a bit different here. So if this is gonna be Stab 9, then it has to be more realistic, because it's supposed to be technically the sequel to a legacy sequel that they did within the franchise, meaning that it's gonna be taken seriously and it's not gonna be fun anymore. It's gonna be basically like a Scream movie.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface.
I want to be in the sequel.
And I'm saying this because the fact that we are on a set of a stab movie is actually a plot twist. So we start the movie with a normal killing scene that you would expect in a Scream movie, and then we have that fatidic moment when everyone is died and we have like the Ghostface killer doing that kind of slash across the screen, and someone calls cut. And then we see everyone going back to stage. The directors of this stab movie are actually the real directors of the
Scream
VII movie.
That's
so the
a
people
good idea.
from Radio Silence, and we can see them, for example, behind the camera and discussing what the next scene is gonna be about. So everyone is moving around the stage besides the victim. Weirdly enough, is still lying on the floor, not moving an inch, but no one is still worried for the time being because they all have their own job to do, so they're not really focused on what happened right there. We have a small conversation between the directors and the producer of the stab movie, who is the actress Pokémon.
That would have been a cool cameo. Really cool cameo.
Producer, of course, she has survived Scream 3, so it will be another legacy character coming back in a role.
Plus, she's such a good actress. Like, I saw her in White Lotus, like, previous season, and she's so good still today. So it would have been really cool to bring her back for such a tiny thing. That is a clever way to do, like, nostalgia well. To use those characters to have small cameos to, like, make us, like, care about this universe. Apparently, no one is as clever as me.
And she decided to come to the Stab franchise to actually tell the real story, to make it look like a real film, because the Stab movies that she was in portrayed her like a bimbo and portrayed the story as something incredibly like laughable at the end of the day. So she wanted to be up and close to direct the real story. So everyone is talking, and then someone suddenly realized that the Ghostface killer has not removed his mask. He's just standing over the body of the victim, not doing anything, just standing like a creep in the middle of this stage with the victim at its feet. And everyone starts like calling the actress, asking her to stand up because they need to move on to the next scene, but she doesn't, and people start getting scared. And this is the moment where the Ghostface killer actually raises his head and he's like,
This movie doesn't end well for you. Oh shit.
and he starts killing everyone.
I'm
on
loving
set.
this.
He kills like the lighting technicians, the sound people, the director themselves. The producer is the last one to die, and she's the one who makes the final scream until the title of the movie comes on. So Parker Posey makes a big impression in this cold opening scene. After this scene here, because of this tragedy, there will not be any Stab movies anymore, because everyone will be too scared to actually do anything about it. So don't worry about it. This cold opening is not related to anything going on for the rest of the movie. We're not going to move to movie sets and stuff like that, because the production will completely stop and they will not make a movie anymore because of this national tragedy once again. And if you want to add Gale Weathers, you can as well, since in the previous movie she clearly wrote another book about what happened in Woodsboro the year before. So it would be kind of interesting if she actually was an advisor on this movie here. So if you don't want Parker Posey to come back, then you can have a Gale Weathers.
Actually, I have a better pitch. You could do the exact same thing I said, but Parker Posey's character manages to escape somehow, and that would be the twist, as in she manages to escape, but Gale Weathers is actually the one who dies on set. That would have been incredible, because as fans we'd be like, oh fuck, they're not pulling their punches. Like, we had this character from like Scream 3 that they could have killed off very easily, but they decided to actually kill Gale Weathers. Also, it creates the perfect link to the rest of the movie and to trying to attract Sidney Prescott like into the main plot once again. So let's do it like that. Of course, I cannot tick this off on my bingo card because it didn't happen.
But I think that this cold opening scene is perfect. It's a callback to the original trilogy, the third movie that closed everything, especially when it comes to the Sidney Prescott storyline and Maureen Prescott's story as well. But at the same time, you completely delete the Stab movies from history, because as they said in the previous movie, fuck the movies. Like, these Ghostface killers from this new generation, they don't give a shit about the movies. It's all about reality. It's all about making their own versions of the story that they want to tell. This is amazing, right? And if you don't like it, well, I don't care, because in my head it sounds really cool. Now we have to talk about the killer motivations, right? It's one of the most important things. First of all, I have two ideas for this, and specifically about how many killers are gonna be there and stuff like that. It would be interesting to have 2 killers instead of 3 this time around. It would be really interesting for both of them to be women, because you'd be mirroring what they did with the original Scream movie. But I actually have a better idea than this. So when it comes to the bingo card, I will take the second option that I'm talking about right right now, which is gonna be insane, of course, but hear me out. This final movie is still about Sidney Prescott. We have to get rid of everything. We have to close out the franchise, which is something they were trying to do with Scream VI as well, cutting out all the loose hands and end the Scream franchise as it is. So the Ghostface killers are trying to kill Sidney Prescott, but they can't find her. So that's why they need to attract attention, which also explains why they would be going after the new generations of Scream survivors, because these Ghostface killers were actually aware of everything that was going on in Woodsboro, so they remember that Sidney Prescott actually came around for those killings to protect the teenagers, and she might do it again, especially if she doesn't come back because of Gil Weathers. One thing that I want to fix as well is to have none of the Ghostface killers to be people that we know. I'm kind of tired of the old thing that they tried to play with, especially in the last two movies, of everyone is a suspect, everyone could be a suspect. I've been watching these movies for almost 20 years. I know that everyone can be a suspect. They've been playing on that for such a long time. It's become kind of redundant and boring, and at the end of the day, they don't want to commit to writing these characters too much, so it becomes quite obvious who is the killer. It's very often the characters who don't have that much going on with their lives. If you look at the weird guy, for example, from Scream VI, whose name I completely forgot, it was really clear that he was the killer because he was just a blank character, right? So this time around, I want Ghostface killers who are not part of the main groups. We can still have maybe the main characters being like, I mean, in the other versions, the killers were people around us. Maybe it's the same this time around, but it's not actually true. So they'll be trying to...
Hey, something else I can tick off my bingo card. Well done. This is exactly what happened in Scream VII. But I was wrong about it mattering, because, I mean, I'm gonna mention it in the video because I 100% remember right now, but like in Scream VII, it's people who have nothing to do with Sidney Prescott. It's basically fans, just random fans, trying to lure her in because they think she's not like a real final girl slash Scream Queen anymore because she didn't go to New York and deal with Ghostface. It's so incredibly stupid. Literally, like, this woman, she was radicalized by Sidney Prescott's book. It like influenced her to kill her abusive husband and to create all of this and convince all of these people to do her bidding. So incredibly boring. So I actually think that one of the main parts of these Scream movies is the investigation, is about thinking that everyone could be a suspect, because that makes the movie more interesting and it's not just a normal slasher anymore. I was right, but maybe it's not the perfect choice from a screenwriting perspective.
And big plot twist, because this is the end of a franchise, so we need to go big. We need to shoot as big and high as possible, like they did with Scream 3.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Jill is coming back, and I have an entire thing on why
100%
and how
agree.
Jill can come back, and it is related to Stumacher. This is something the fans have been discussing for such a long time. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna happen, but I'm gonna tell you why I think it needs to happen to give closure.
Didn't happen. Stu technically came back, but half a tick maybe.
Movie and end of a franchise. Stumacher has survived, and I don't really have an explanation on why or how Stumacher has managed to stay alive, but I do have an explanation for Jill and how she could be alive. First of all, think about it. The original killer from the very first movie and the new legacy killer from Scream 4 teaming up to destroy everything and everyone to close.
She was actually not like a Ghostface legacy killer. She was a reboot killer. Very important, like postmodern difference.
It will be interesting because Stumacher in the meantime has managed to create a life outside of Sidney Prescott. That's why he's not meddled with anything, and that's why he's managed to stay hidden as well, because he's changed his name. Maybe he even has a new face, even though it would be interesting to see it like all scarred up and stuff. Maybe he has a family as well.
It's kind of interesting because the photo that I took here, it's literally the one that they ended up using for Scream 7. So is this like some weird like a Mandela effect? Where is this picture actually from? The idea of him surviving, ending up in a mental institution and having amnesia and sort of like remembering at some point what happened to him. Interesting, maybe. That could be why he didn't do anything before, like as in from all of the other previous movies, he just snapped like right now. It gives us a good reason, but I have actually a better one when it comes to basically helping Jill, like saving Jill, and and nursing her back to health until she's ready to do something about it. This is basically my main point.
And he's been able to actually grow into like a productive member of society, but he has this thing at the back of his head, this PTSD of suffering so much because of Sidney Prescott. And of course he's been following all the different killings that have been going on across the years, and there is one thing that makes him snap. It's Jill. It's the Jill murders back in Scream 4 that makes him snap, but it doesn't make him snap enough to actually go after Sidney. He goes actually to the hospital and he saves Jill. He keeps her hidden in a medical coma for like a couple of years and stuff like that because she's not able to wake up. Of course it sounds a bit weird and convoluted, but I feel like there could be a way of figuring this out, especially in the States. There are so many people like changing identities and disappearing. We've seen so many Ghostface killers like evading the police for such a long time, and even like Kirby herself, we spotted the FBI, she was not able to prevent any of the murders that happened in Scream 6. So I feel like it's very good to say that the police is shit within this franchise and is not able to have a grasp of anything going on. It was really clear in the first few movies, but it's really clear even now. That's why Stu Macher was able to escape and get better and then go back to a sort of normal life, and that's also why he came back. He nursed Jill back into health until she was ready to get her final revenge. And that's why it took so much time for her to actually get back at Sidney, because she was in a medically induced coma. Because I don't know if you remember, but they literally fried her brain.
Have one final word?
What? Please?
No. Clear.
Clear?
Clear.
And once she wakes up, she gets up to speed with all those things that Stu Macher tells her, and Stu gives her the choice to basically either get her revenge or disappear like him, but he will support her whatever she decides to do. So we got these two killers from different generations teaming up to kill everyone off so that they can go back and have a normal life. Sounds like a really cool thing, right?
Also, like I talked about this with a friend of mine when it comes to Ghostface killers and Scream, like we need to be scared again. In order for us to be scared again, maybe make sure that Ghostface killers are not one-offs, and maybe some of them could survive from one movie to the next, and this would be a perfect addition of that, because these are two people that were really crazy, like really out there. They had crazy plans, and it's a perfect way, as I said, to end the trilogy, because it's one from the very beginning of the series and it's one from the revival of the series. Two people of different ages. It wouldn't have worked out so well, and I'm so sad that it didn't.
And those are the main things about Scream 7 that I wanted to talk about. Those are the most important plot points that I think need to be changed and need to be improved, especially if you want to make a movie that stands out and that is not just a good slasher movie, that is an actual good Scream movie. Now I have some other things to add to my bingo card here. There are more fun than actually like interesting plot changes. So I'm gonna grab my phone and tell you about them, because at the end of the day I still want to...
Oh, both Patricks are holding phones at the same time.
be able to do that if I only go through different weird speculations and fan theories, right? The next thing that I put down is at least one chase sequence with two Ghostface killers at the same time, which is something that we've never seen when you think about it. We've got that really cool scene with Chad where they got the two Ghostface killers like stabbing him at the same time. How cool would it be if we have a chase sequence with two Ghostface killers going after either one victim or multiple victims at the same time? I feel like it would be really exciting. And
this was one of the coolest moments actually in Scream 7. It's when basically Tatum is running away from one Ghostface killer and the other one just appears from the front, and she thought she managed to escape and they actually capture her together. That worked out really well in my opinion.
And that goes with the thing I was saying before, raising the stakes, making sure that we actually care about what happens to these characters here and that we know that they're in actual danger. The next thing I put down in my bingo card is a character gets stabbed and goes to the hospital and survives, which is something that has happened so many different times within the Scream franchise. So I was like, if you put that in, it will happen 100%.
The two twins happened.
And like a sure bet they will happen. The next thing I put down is one of the four main characters gets a new partner and they're killed by Ghostface, which is something that happens like all the time within the Scream franchise, and I'm pretty sure it will happen once.
This actually happened, but because of the main cast reshuffling and stuff like that, one of our main characters is now Sidney Danny Prescott's daughter, and she has a boyfriend who we suspect for a stupid reason at some point because he's holding an open laptop with some like weird fake AI thing with Stu's face on. Like, why would you walk around with an open laptop and get into the car with an open laptop? It's so fucking stupid, like so stupid. But he ends up dying, so technically I was right. I could never have guessed that the main cast was gonna be changing that much because of all the controversies, basically.
Another thing to put in my bingo card, any of the characters say some bullshit like, I don't know why, but this one feels different. They always say it within the Scream franchise. Dewey is the one that said it in Scream 2022, even though technically that movie was not that different from the other ones, but I'm 100% sure.
Did it actually happen? This one feels different? Oh, actually, yeah, it does happen. It does happen when they talk about Stu being alive and they're like, I don't know, this seems impossible, and they start investigating and they're like, oh, maybe it might be possible. So yeah, this one feels different. It actually happens because they're like, why would he reveal his identity so soon into the investigation, right? So I was right about this one once again.
The next one is Ghostface killed someone by setting them on fire.
Stop, I'm sorry about Dewey.
Fuck you.
Oh, it happens! It happens in the opening sequence.
When it comes to the kills, there is
Well
too
done.
much stabbing.
Good
And
guess.
that's also why a lot of people got excited about the bodega scene and Ghostface actually using a firearm on screen like that, and not just in the final third act once he has removed his mask. It would be really cool and really Machiavellic for
That's
him
very true.
or her to actually set someone on fire. Very dramatic, very cool. Plus, it would attract everyone.
And it's probably why a lot of people probably like the moment where he takes this guy in the bar and he like impales him on the beer like thing, and beer comes out of his mouth. It felt very like Terrifier coded. Some people said that it felt like this is not Scream anymore because the Scream like people are not that sadistic. Like they do love staging their kills quite a lot, especially with the kill, you know, with the wires and him like stabbing her legs and stuff like that. That kill was actually quite cool, and it reminded us of like one of the first few kills in the franchise where basically they hang like Drew Barrymore's body in the middle of that field and all the guts like coming out. But at the same time, like I agree with past Patrick, like we need to have different things.
Another thing that I would really like to happen is there needs to be at least one body part being amputated. Of course,
I actually don't know if they did it in Scream 7. Can you let me know down in the comments? I don't think so. Is there like a body part being cut or amputated by a Ghostface killer in Scream 7? I don't think it happens. This one, unfortunately, we'll have to wait maybe for the next one.
makes sense to actually do it, right? So if you want to raise the stakes, if you want to make it more gory, and it seems like this new trilogy is definitely more gory and more serious than the original, then I want it to be at the same standard as other slasher movies, with body parts flying around or people scooping eyeballs and throwing them on the floor, something weird like that.
Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
I've heard worse.
My last part of my bingo card is gonna be Ghostface tortures someone to get information out of them. This is something I was criticizing before as well.
Interesting.
Got this idea of the Ghostface killers knowing everything about everyone. Always have a feeling that they can control everything. They have eyes everywhere. So it would be interesting if we have Ghostface killers who are actually trying to obtain information. And also it goes well with the entire pitch that I did before when it comes to them trying to find out where Sydney is, and torturing people is the best way to do it. Plus,
100%
it would be
agree.
interesting as well, because I feel like the only way that they torture people is when they chase them down, slash them a little bit, and then they run away, for example. And that is a bit of like psychological torture. But it would be interesting if they actually tied someone to a chair and just killed him like that.
Hey, this is actually what they do to Tatum. I mean, well done. That was a good choice.
Which reminds me, for example, of that moment in Scream 4 when Kirby was on the phone talking to Ghostface, and the other Ghostface killer was actually the one tied to the chair. We need more things like that.
So technically speaking, just because the image there is of a person being tied to a chair, and I mentioned what happened in Scream 4, it didn't happen. So I don't know, should I take this one on as well, or?
I think it's way more fun than just going around and slashing people. We need a bit of change. We need to raise the stakes, as I said before.
But that is basically it. Yeah, that is basically it when it comes to the predictions. Honestly, my movie sounds sounds way better, way better. And if you take something away from this video is that do not watch Scream VII, like literally watch this instead, because it's a waste of money because of all the things they did to Melissa Barrera. It's an insult to Jenna Ortega's career as well, and also like Christopher Landon, because he was supposed to direct that movie. We ended up like getting this weird Frankenstein movie that only producers wanted to happen, and apparently they're working on Scream VIII already. Like fuck that, I'm not interested in this franchise anymore, and it used to be one of my favorite horror franchise ever. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think it was really fun to look back at what I thought and realizing that it was still quite fun and and clever at the end of the day. I kind of hope that the screenwriters took some notes back then, but no one is perfect. As usual, here down at the bottom I'm gonna be putting other videos that talk about Scream things, because I've made so many actually in the last few years. And actually, if you'd like another review where I go deep down in Scream VI, there is that on my channel, of course. And here at the top I'm gonna be putting the topic of my next video. I hope you had a good time. Don't forget to smash that like button. Every single time that you do that, you give some appreciation to Stu Macher, his legacy, and Matthew Lillard as an actor as well.
Can I count on you?
Because honestly, the things that he had to do for this movie, kind of pathetic. Like he was probably really saddened by the fact that he was not really in this movie. He was just like a ghost-like version of him. Actually, exactly what they did with Billy Loomis from the original trilogy and the weird hallucination things. So for me, it was a big middle finger to the fans, and we need to appreciate Matthew Lillard more because he's such a fun actor and, from what I've heard, good person all around. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Are you ready for the post-credit scene? Have you been a good boy? Have you subscribed? Okay, fine. Here it is.
Oh, look at me. I'm all dead. I'm a gross, scary, severed head. Come on, please. Do you know who I am? I'm Miss Teen. You're really giving me a headache. And you got blood all over my Gucci sweater. I hope you're gonna pay for that. Ah! I will not.